Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. We hope your week is off to a great start. We're going to be sharing our wonderful listener story and questions this episode. And as you know, we always love to hear from you guys. Before we dive in, just wanted to say hello, Denise. Are you having a good week?
I am. It's finally summer and warm, and I think things are shifting. Before we came on and we were talking about the astrological shifts, and there's a little glimmer of hope coming in for a lot of people. So I'm really excited about that.
I am too. I think a lot of these new energetic shifts are going to be really, really positive. I think they're going to breathe fresh life into our ideas and our goals and our plans. So I feel the same way as you do.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to start us off with our first one?
Sure. I'm not someone who asks for signs much anymore. I think my guides like to play with me, and now I feel like I just need to trust my own intuition. But I would like to share one sign I got years ago that was not easy to dismiss. Quite a few years back, I needed a sign about a change of job situation. I'd been pretty disappointed in my guides to this point and decided to be very specific on what I wanted to see if the job was the right one. So I said, okay, guides, I need to see 2 dimes and a nickel on the ground if this is the right decision. I don't recall if I gave a time limit or not, but I did forget about it. One day I was in the mall, standing in the checkout line of the store behind other women. The woman opened her wallet and out fell onto the ground, you guessed it, 2 dimes and a nickel. The woman looked down and said, whoops. I looked down and in my head said, holy bleep, I probably don't need to ask again for a clearer sign. But recall I did say my guides like to play with me because the job did not turn out well. I figured my lesson from then on must be don't ask if you really already know the answer. And I have one more interesting thing to share. This one is not a requested sign, but a sign nonetheless. I was at home doing household chores and carrying a basket full of laundry to be put away. I was thinking to myself that I'd rather be doing something fun rather than doing necessary household chores. And I kid you not, in my head I heard, just like a good little foot soldier. I stopped and looked around. It didn't come from outside my head, so I'm not sure why I looked around. It was not in someone else's voice. It was my own voice. But I can assure you, I didn't come up with that phrase. I didn't even know what a foot soldier was until I looked it up. Then I realized who could have said it. My father had been Marine in his younger days. This is something he would have teased me with. So I know he's still around. Maybe he's up there with my guides just having a good laugh. Well, if so, I'm happy to be so entertaining. But sometimes I do let them know I've got this. So I think that is, I think we all do that. Please show me a sign. Oh, is that the one you really meant? Or do you have something better that I should be waiting for? I mean, the fact that 2 dimes and a nickel falling on the ground is... And she'd forgotten, she followed all the rules. She'd forgotten about it. She wasn't looking around on the ground for dimes and nickels. And it was very spontaneous. And also the second example was very spontaneous. And I think that's a key part when we're getting a sign is you're not looking for it. You're not dwelling on it. You're not trying to make it fit.
You know, someone sent me a lot of listeners will send me like, oh, listen to this podcast or listen to this YouTube thing. And someone sent me an interview I didn't know Howie Mandel had a podcast. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know that. And he had John Edward and Tyler Henry on, the Hollywood medium.
Mm-hmm.
I just love him. And he was talking about how he was sharing how he became a believer after getting a reading with George Anderson. And he said I can't remember if it was Tyler or John Edward, but he said, it made me realize how many times my father had tried to communicate with me years before that, and I had ignored it or just chalked it up to coincidence or my imagination.
Right.
And I thought that was so powerful because we can all relate to that, where our loved ones are always around us trying to talk to us. But if you're not a believer, you're going to be like, oh, just a good little foot soldier. Maybe I was watching Band of Brothers on Netflix and I heard it there. But no, she's open. She knows her father. She knows he was a Marine and this is something he would say. And so she didn't miss this sign. And I just think that's another gift that spirit gives us when we're willing to surrender and trust and believe.
100%.
And I want to add something else about the 2 dimes and a nickel. I think this is so interesting, the way she was asking about a sign if this job was the right one for her. Now, I read recently in another book, the author gave such a great tip. He said, when you ask your guides or your oracle deck or, your higher self for information on guidance for something in the future, instead of saying, is this job the right one for me? What you need to do is say, is this job the right one for me now at this point of my path?
Oh, I love that.
And I thought that's such a subtle thing, but it's so important. Sure, that job might be the right one for you, but maybe not now. Maybe not with the people working there currently. Maybe not with the situation you have with daycare in your life right now, but in 10 years it will be. So you have to be specific in terms of timing, I think, in these questions we ask as well.
That's an excellent point. Really, really important to work that factor in as well.
Yeah. I mean, because we always tell people, don't be so specific. So now we're confusing everyone. But but I just like that little subtle shift. Is now the right time to, and then fill in your question.
Yes.
All right. Our next one says, so much of the time, my questions get answered by listening to your shows without me asking a thing. But I've never heard either show mention hagstones, stones with holes in them. I found a couple back in the early 90s when I was in my 20s and had just moved to the Northwest from Wisconsin. I knew they were special and kept them all these years. Not long ago, I found them again while going through my rocks. We went to the beach just last week and I found 2 more. From what I found, it said you shouldn't buy them. They find you. This is true. They protect you and give insight. The holes form naturally over lots of time by water, pebbles, and creatures. I just wondered if you knew anything else about them or if you knew that this is correct. Yes, everything you said is correct. I think I've discussed hagstones a couple of times in Psychic Teachers, but it probably has been a while. They are beautiful, beautiful stones that have a it looks like a drilled hole in them, but they're actually created by years of water and being tumbled in the ocean. And what's really cool is there's a legend around them, because they're also sometimes called fairy stones, but normally they're called hagstones. But the legend is, if you hold a hagstone or a holy stone up to a full moon and you peer through that hole to look at the full moon, you'll see into the fairy dimension.
Oh,
don't you love that?
I would love to find one. I've never found one.
Here's the thing, Denise. Deb was the first one who introduced me to hagstones, or I think she calls them holy stones too. And she had a bunch of them at her house. And I was like, ooh, I want to find one. Now, I have been walking the beach pretty much my entire life. I mean, I grew up for years in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and my dad and I would walk the beach all the time. And he used to always say to me, look up, Samantha, look up, you're missing the view. Because I was always head down looking for shells. And then now I live right out on the beach. I'm always looking for shells. Never found a holy stone. Deb introduces me to these things, and I'm like, ooh, I want to find one. Denise, I have buckets of them now. So put out the intention, and I promise you, in your beautiful neck of the woods, you will find I bet you'll find a holy stone this weekend.
So are they basically by the ocean, though, not by rivers or streams?
No, you can find them by rivers and streams. It's just any stone that has been battered, and for some reason, this perfect hole. I'll take a picture of I have a big one that's a heart shaped and it has a hole in it, and I just think it's so cool. But what I did, and this is so funny. So I did this, and I'm telling about it on Psychic Teachers, and Deb was like, I did the same thing. I have the same thing in my house. So without even talking, we both did this. We took 9 holy or hag stones, and I just took some twine, and I did the knot of 9 spell. Knot of 1, the spell has begun. But I wrote my own, and I had it rhyme to. So every knot added a different layer of protection to my home, and then I hung that strand of 9 hagstones on my front door.
Oh, that's very fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. It does create a lot of conversation when people come to visit you, but that's okay. But yeah, they're super, super fun. And once you know about them, they're easy to find.
So it's interesting because one of the places that I walk the dogs is it's a beach that it's all rocks. It's right on the river. And I find a lot of heart-shaped rocks. I find a lot of really beautiful striated rocks. I found all that stuff, but I've never found a hagstone. So maybe when I go down there later, I'll find one.
You will. And she's right. You're not supposed to buy them. They're supposed to find you, because when I got really into them, I started collecting them. And you know how I give a free crystal with every order? Well, a couple of times I was like, oh, I'm going to give people some of my holy stones. And then I did more research, and it's like, no, you're really not supposed to give them away or sell them. People need to find their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that idea.
Yeah, I do too. And I do think there's a lot of things that we are meant to come to us. We're not supposed to actively buy them, find them, trade. I think they'll show up for, excuse me, they'll show up for us when they're meant to be in our lives.
Yes, 100%. The only one I don't agree with is the old legend of tarot cards have to find you.
Yeah, I don't either.
That one kind of pissed me off, because where I was at my stage of my spiritual journey, there wasn't no one in God's green earth that was going to be like, Samantha needs a deck of tarot cards.
Right.
So I had to go get my own.
Yeah. And I think that's, well, it comes back to the purest view of the tarot. If that's what your belief system is and you're waiting for that's great. It's similar to me, to people who read traditionally versus intuitively. And I have great respect for both methods. But some people really, the tarot has a lot of idiosyncrasies around it that people get very connected to.
Yeah. And you're right. That's fine. You do you. But I think if you're called to the tarot, go get yourself a tarot deck.
Right. Okay. Our next one is, and this is someone that I did a reading with that, I apologize, I don't remember this, but I don't remember because I sit like a hand puppet. We've had this conversation. And this person reached out for a reading, had mixed feelings about their career, but really wanted to stay home with their child. And so I guess on an episode, you had said that I was good at doing readings, and the person thought, well, maybe Denise has some availability around my birthday and I can book a reading as a present. So lo and behold, she was able to get a spot. So, and she laughed to herself and said, I guess this is meant to be. And then this person writes, Samantha, you were so right about your comment. The reading was spot on, and she validated so many things that I was feeling. She picked up on my creativity that I haven't been able to access because I've been doing things the way others have envisioned for me. She also validated my sensitivity around others, which is why I've always struggled in a corporate setting. Denise asked me if I did anything creative, and I told her that I did pottery, but I was having a hard time allowing myself to pursue it. At the time of the reading, I'd been thinking about buying a pottery wheel for my house, but couldn't allow myself to do it because it felt selfish to spend so much money on something, even though I loved it. She mentioned it felt hard because I was trying to break an ancestral pattern. We continued on with the reading when an ancestor came through who she described as a great-grandmother who spoke English as a second language and was petite. She said this ancestor was showing herself with one hand on her heart and the other in mine, saying if I ever wondered why I felt sensitive when everyone else felt practical, it's because there's a genetic lineage and we're wired the same way. She went on and wrapped up the reading saying, you don't have to believe me, and I don't really care, but I keep getting a peripheral vision flash, which I know means you're highly sensitive to other people's energy or a natural medium who can connect with spirit easily. And that is a consistent thing that I get with people. She gave a couple of timelines around that I was going to get the missing pieces of my puzzle. The first was around Thanksgiving, and the second was in February around a family member's birthday. Immediately after the reading, I shared the description of my great-grandmother with my parents, and my mother said it was her meme, Alice, who passed away when my mom was pregnant with me. Before this reading took place, my mother had always told me I was just like Alice in terms of personality and creativity. I once told my mom that I love to make a hot toddy whenever I'm extremely congested, and she laughed because her meme would do the same thing. I kept thinking about the genetic lineage and what Denise said about me possibly being a natural medium. I've always experienced premonitions and will see flashes from the corner of my eye, but I thought she was yanking my chain. My family had rented an Airbnb for Thanksgiving, and my sister-in-law brought her tarot cards, so I asked if she could give me a reading. A few weeks had passed since my reading, and I was hesitant about leaving my career field for something new. When my sister-in-law asked me what I wanted to know, I said, I want to know if I should leave my current career path and throw my marbles into trying to be a medium and a conduit for spirit. She told me to shuffle the cards, so I did, and the death card instantly jumped out. I then spread the cards out, and the first card I pulled was the Tower. The message was clear that I was in the process of transformation. I ended up buying a pottery wheel and decided I was going to use my creativity as a way of honoring spirit somehow. However, I slowly started second-guessing myself again and thought I was being dumb. It's now February. My logical mind had convinced me over the months to stay in my career field because it felt comfortable. I saw a job posting that I was qualified for, and I applied on the morning of my mother's birthday. Instantly thought, I wonder if this is the timeline she was talking about. I ended up having an interview with the company, and oh my gosh, my intuition kept screaming, this isn't you anymore. I couldn't remember the specifics she had said about the timeline, so I replayed the recording of the reading, and right before she gave the timeline, she pulled a card. Guess what the card was? Death. And I laughed to myself, saying, I hear you loud and clear, Spirit. I'm moving on to something new. I've always lived in the broom closet, but I'm slowly allowing bits of myself to enjoy the sunlight. For the past 2 years, I've been privately studying evolutionary astrology and past lives, so out of curiosity, I wondered if you could do the same thing with tarot. For shits and giggles, I laid out my cards asking who I was in a past life, that I'm healing in this incarnation, and pulled the Empress. A couple days passed, and my curiosity wanted to see what card I would pull this time around, so I asked the same question. It was the Empress again. I thought, maybe I suck at shuffling cards. Another 2 days passed. I made sure to shuffle the cards really well before spreading them out and asked the question for a third time. I held my hands over the card and focused my energy so my hand was gravitating to it, and I picked the card, and it was the Empress. I then asked who my soul was trying to become and pulled the Hierophant. I laughed to myself again because lately I've been thinking about applying to a program for a Master's of Art in Education with a focus in expressive art therapy. I feel like this is the best path for me, where I can share my creativity but also intuitively help others. I'm in the process of learning tarot, so I'm still trying to understand the cards, but it made me wonder if tarot can be used better to understand past lives or ancestry. My dad has been researching our genealogy, so I've been taking any birth times he came across to look up ancestral birth charts from an evolutionary astrology perspective, but was wondering if tarot could add another layer to better understand ancestors. What do you both think? So I think that there's a lot in this. I'm really glad whatever came through resonated with this person. You see, you never know. And it's so weird when you read something that you were involved with that you have no recollection of. I'm really convinced that being a channel is similar to having Alzheimer's.
I don't think so.
Well, you know shit, but it just flies out of your mouth and you can't recall it. There's something happening there.
Well, you just allow yourself to be a conduit, and that's a great thing. But it also, again, stories like this make me feel so bad for our spirit guides. Because we've been trying so hard to push her in this direction, and there's a lot of stubbornness. The 3 Empress card pulls.
You can't make that shit up.
No, you cannot. So yes, I would say to her, I love the idea of doing the art therapy, because it doesn't sound like she's fully ready to leap out of that broom closet. And this would be a really good bridge to do that.
And it could also be an incredible addition to a practice that she's building it comes back to what you said a few minutes ago. Is this best for me now?
Right.
Because is this something that Spirit is going to unveil and weave that into this evolutionary astrology? Astrology is a deep, deep pool. I don't think anyone can ever master it.
No.
And I would absolutely think that it could be between the astrology and the tarot, using both to connect with ancestors and genealogical patterns and all of those things, 100%.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, our next one says, I am a mother of 2 young boys, and I come from an extremely traditional religious Mexican family and a narcissist mother. So you've been a blessing in my life as I keep learning so much from you. You've helped me find a loving way of raising my kids. I didn't really have anyone I could learn from in that way. I feel like you could be my loving aunts who live far away and whom I can trust and listen and learn from. I know you're young, so maybe my cousins, lol. Oh, God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, your advice, your stories, your experiences. I wish you all the best. Big hug from Mexico. And I just wanted to share that one, Denise, because I know I've said this a lot, but I really do still feel like it's a taboo to say I have a narcissistic mother.
Yeah.
And, I got a lot of pushback, as I've said before, from family members that I would talk openly on both podcasts about my complex relationship with my mom. And yet I just felt really, really pulled to do so because, well, really because of what my dad taught me through all his years in AA. You're only as sick as your secrets. And something else that Dr. Phil used to always say, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And I just think it is so important to say those things out loud, to honor yourself and validate yourself and say, yes, this is a difficult relationship. And a difficult parent is never a reflection of you. And it took me a really long time to learn that. And so I think it's important for all of us to share our stories and our experiences. And I just thank you, listener, so much for taking time to send that in. And we are honored to be your aunts, your cousins, your friends.
Yes. Yes, very much so. And you're right. Having a parent who is a narcissist or who is emotionally unavailable or who puts stipulations on love or praise or whatever it might be, it sticks with you forever. But it also, you know exactly what not to do in raising your own children. So there's huge, huge lessons in that can be a beautiful gift.
Oh, I totally agree. I don't think either of us would be, such good moms if we didn't have some struggles. If
I
we were
agree with
so
that
conscious
totally.
and
Yeah,
aware. Yeah.
yeah. And it's never too late. And the work continues when someone's still in spirit, and that's when some real healing can happen as well. So it's pretty damn beautiful, actually.
Amen.
I just wanted to scream, can I get an amen? I'm sorry. Let's see. Is the next one I've been clairaudient?
Yes.
Okay. I've been clairaudient since childhood. I just didn't know what it was called until 2020 when I started my spiritual journey. I knew I was different as a kid, that it wasn't normal, so I hid it and tried my hardest to push it away. I didn't hear clear voices. What I hear is different frequencies that others can't hear. Or I can hear happiness or stressful anxieties. Imagine a playground in the distance of happy children playing. This is the happiness I can hear and truly is my favorite sound. Now imagine a few of the kids getting hurt or crying, others rushing around them scared. This is the sound of anxiety. These sounds are amplified very loudly, but very much in the distance. I also, sometimes in my dreams or when I'm awake, just know things. I don't know how, I just do. But the other day, was the first time I actually heard a voice. I was lying in bed and heard the loudest noise, like something had fallen. Very loud bang. We have chickens in the yard, and I assumed they knocked something over because when it happened, they all started clucking. About 15 seconds later, I heard a moaning sound, and for the first time, I heard a voice say, "Help, help." It was faint but very clear. I don't know how I knew this, but I knew someone had fallen. I did recognize this voice, thinking it was coming from the property behind us. I jumped up and saying, I'm coming, I'm coming. I got halfway through the house and I could hear my dad calling my name. As I reached the front, I could see the window and could see my dad lying on the cement on his back, blood gushing from his head. Oh, luckily he's okay. I called an ambulance and was able to slow the bleeding down until the ambulance arrived. 5 staples later in his head, and I'm wondering whose voice was saying help, an angel, a guide. I asked my dad if he was yelling for help, and he said no. He only called my name twice and I was there, but he never called out the word help. I really believe this voice saved his life. I was on the other side of the house and wouldn't have heard him calling if it was not for that voice. It seems my knowing is getting stronger and stronger. In the last few years, I've really started healing. Could this be why it's getting stronger and stronger? Or does it get stronger the older you get? I'm currently 62. I've also told very few people I can hear things for fear of them saying I'm crazy. I've had friends in the past say this. How do I explain to people that don't understand it? Or do I just keep it to myself? Well, the beautiful part is we both understand it perfectly. And I think most of our listeners, or a high majority of our listeners, this is so normal in the sense of the cognizance of just knowing stuff without knowing. And it is hard to explain to people. But I really feel like was it a guide? Was it an angel? Was it an ancestor in spirit? Made sure that you got to your dad all on time. And that's beautiful.
It really is. And when she says she's been doing a lot of healing, is that why it's getting stronger? Or is it because she's getting older? No, it's because of the healing. I remember my Reiki master teacher telling us that Reiki energy is just one example of Drano. And she said, whenever you do healing on yourself, such as Reiki, it acts like energetic Drano and it clears all the stuff that's been clogging your connection to spirit. And so I think that's why this ability is getting stronger. I love the way she describes hearing frequencies.
Yes.
I've never done that. I would like to be able to do that. Have you ever heard of it explained that way?
No, I haven't. And when I was reading it, I was thinking about when you get that high pitched sound in your ear and it's like a download.
Yeah.
It's a download. But to hear the emotion of frequency, the frequency of emotion is what she's talking about. That's amazing.
It really is. And, Denise, you and I have been doing this for a couple of decades. I still don't know how to explain it to people who aren't, on this path. And so I don't know that I have a really good answer for you. But what I do know is when I get an intuitive knowing or nudge for someone in my life who's not really tuned into all this woo-woo stuff, I just give it to my guides. I just take that message and I visualize just plopping it in their hands. And I just say, you show me how to present this to them.
I love that too.
And you can do it in a gentle way. I just had a friend, sometimes when I meditate, I get hits or intuitive feelings about people in my life. And I didn't get anything really specific for her. I just got that, I kept hearing that Pharrell song, I'm So Happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like something good is coming to her. It just felt like a lucky girl syndrome, And so I just texted her and I said, hey, heads up. I just feel like some good stuff is heading your way and you deserve it. I didn't say like I was meditating with this crystal and that crystal. And I felt, I just passed on the feeling I got. And if they take it, they take it. And if they don't, they don't. So I don't know. That's my only answer. Do you have anything better?
No, I love those. And the only other thing is when I've talked to people that I knew, very new, because of religious beliefs or backgrounds or whatever, were not open to it. And I was getting a strong nudge like that. I would say, I had the funniest feeling the other day, or I had a dream, or I would describe a situation in my own life that I had been through that mimics what they're going through. And it was a way to open that door to a conversation that would be honoring to someone else's belief system, but would also be honoring to spirit to get through the message that they were trying to bring through so clearly.
Yes. And what's cool? When you open yourself up to being a conduit, a messenger, a worker for the light, if you will, really cool things can happen that you might not even be consciously aware of. Like my daughters and I went wedding dress shopping. Let me tell you, Denise, that's a weird thing to go wedding dress shopping with your 3 daughters for your own wedding dress. But it was very, very fun. And they had their yes and no paddles. And anyway, so we went to a couple of stores and we were driving home. We were like, I'm going to stop at this one. And this one woman who was helping me, it was a very, fancy, nice store. And she was telling me like how happy she was that she was working in this lovely store. And then she told me her whole life story, how she had been homeless years ago, how she had been an exotic dancer, and how she just gave her life to God and everything changed. And she met a wonderful man, and she's in school now, and she's working at this lovely store. And I just talked to her. I listened, and I kind of gave her a reading, but she didn't know I was giving her a reading. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I
Yes,
feel like
exactly.
Spirit just put me in her path because that store was not on our agenda. But when you just open yourselves up to say, yes, I think I have this ability. I think I've shared, my mantra has always been, God, use me to do your will.
Right.
So I've just surrendered to whatever God wants from me. Then I feel that you will be shown how you can best share your light.
Right. And it can be different for different people, or one day someone else might approach you and start a conversation and you realize, oh, they get it. And then you can open up in a different way. But more and more people are finding each other, which I love. I am embracing that. The interconnectedness of it is phenomenal right now.
Yes, it is phenomenal. But it can sometimes feel like a job. And so I just would like to share another quick story to remind people that it's okay to say no. I remember years ago, I was coming home from a work trip, and the flight was delayed, and I was cranky and I just wanted to get home. And this person sat next to me, and I had my book open and my AirPods in. What does that say?
Leave me
Don't
alone.
talk to me. Yeah. This person was talking to me, and I was like, nope. And I said inside my head, I said, God, if you sent this person, to talk to me, I am so sorry. You're going to have to send them to someone else. So it's okay to say no sometimes too.
Yes.
Do you ever feel that way? Like, not today.
Yes. Yes. And that's hard because if we're doing, especially if we're doing this work and we are being of service to spirit, it becomes that we're supposed to hold space for everyone. And that's too much.
It is.
It's way too much.
Totally agree. But I love that she listened and she saved her dad.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It really, really is. Love it. Oh. Our next one says, I used to work in education as a middle school counselor. About 14 to 15 years ago, there was a student that was born in the U.S. with a cleft palate but never had it corrected. She was heavy-set and in special education. She would see me for self-esteem. Finally, the family was able to get her cleft palate corrected when she was in the 7th grade. I told her how pretty she was inside and out. She said that no one had ever told her she was pretty. She was having difficulties with speech and said that she couldn't go to speech therapy offered outside of the school district because her family couldn't afford the $10 copay. I sent her out an envelope to the staff asking for donations for the family. Now fast forward to 2021. While I was delivering the 8th graders' 504 folders to the front office, I buzzed to be let in. I looked to the right, and I saw this former student sitting there smiling at me. I said, "Hey, oh my God, how are you?" But then it was like someone wiped a foggy mirror, and I realized it wasn't her. The girl looked at me like I was a lunatic, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else." After I dropped off the folders in the main office, I beat myself up about the mistake and thought, stupid, 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 she would be an adult now. I wondered how she was and how her life had turned out, since I knew she had experienced a lot of trauma. The next evening, while watching the news, I saw a picture of an adult female teaching assistant that had gone missing. Car on the side of the road, purse, phone, no struggle evident. Then I saw her name under the picture, and I almost fainted in my kitchen. Then she came to me in my dream. I was an observer. It was nighttime. She was running in a field. I watched as she hid in some shrubs by a pond. Then we were under the water, and it was cold. This was so vivid and wouldn't leave my mind. This is what happens when I have a message to deliver. After talking to friends, I decided to call the police anonymously. I was laughed out of the building. I burned with shame. The information was so cliché, a field with trees and water. But my mind was clear. Then she came again in my dreams and said he has to be stopped. Then she wrote his name down, but it was in cursive and very old-fashioned crooked cursive, hard to read. But I got the first initial and the first 4 letters of his name. I didn't want to be laughed at again, so I posted on the Facebook tips page to look for a mail with the name I had gotten. Nothing. No response. Months go by. Then the news reports that it was a male coworker with the name she gave me. So here I am trying to understand what happened. Wow. Well, first of all, I'm so glad that he was caught and he was stopped. And what I feel happened is that this terrible, awful, evil event happened to this poor young woman. And in that stage between crossing over, she reached out to anybody that loved or cared for her. And guess who was top in that list? That would be you. And
Oh,
that connection existed because of the love and the care and the concern that you showed her. And so she was trying to get information to you. You clearly got it, and you just weren't listened to. And that's okay. That's going to happen. And that's just unfortunately the society that we live in. But this is an indication of several things. 1, she was able to cross over. 2, you are highly intuitive with mediumship abilities. 3, if you've done this once, you can do it again. So I would recommend that you check out a woman named Pam Coronado. She is a wonderful psychic medium who teaches classes on doing this type of work. And I think you have beginner classes that she offers that you have to take first, like remote viewing. But then she offers a bunch of classes on psychic detective work and will help you learn how to approach the police and do that type of thing if that's what you would like to do. But Pam Coronado, is a really, really good resource for that. So is Nancy Myers. She's another great psychic detective in New Jersey. But I just think this is a beautiful story that is a testimony to the power of love.
right. And it also goes with the urgency that she felt that she had to share it. She had to tell them. She had to let people know. And we've talked about this before, that you had said one time that you can't. A lot of people can't read in dreams. So the fact that she could read am I making that up, or is that a
No, no,
conversation?
no, no.
Okay, because so I've thought about that when I've had dreams or been in a lucid state where I could read something. Is it more of a visitation or being in that liminal space and not actual dream state? So I mean, that's a whole complete other show in itself. But I wonder, because it was a visitation from this person, that's why she could read.
I 100% agree.
But the timing factor of no one could claim it, no one could claim it. They laughed her out of the building, all of those things. But spirit was accurate, because we often we want answers now, or we want to put a time limit, and it isn't there. We can't apply the time to it, and that's so frustrating.
It is so frustrating. And that's why that type of work is so hard. There was an old Unsolved Mysteries episode, the Robert Stack days. They did I think it was like a 2-hour special on intuitives. And it was about a woman who kept having this dream of a nurse who had gone missing. And in her dreams, she was able to see exactly where this nurse was. And she went to the police. They did laugh her away, but one of them went and checked it out. And sure enough, that's where the nurse's remains were found. And guess who got arrested?
Oh,
The psychic.
oh my goodness.
They thought she must be involved somehow if she knew exactly where her remains were disposed of. And she was like in jail, I think overnight before they released her.
Oh my, that's terrible.
I know. So it's complicated. The only reason why I ever worked with police is because I was married to a police officer, so they trusted me.
Yeah,
I think
that's a
to
good
just
point.
walk in randomly off the street, that's hard.
That's a really good point. People that I've talked to that have done this work, many of them have had a connection in one way or another, where someone could validate, could give them credibility.
Yeah, you really need that. Because I don't blame the police if to get a case to court, to get it past the grand jury, to get it past the ADA, the grand jury, the DA, to get it all that way to the court, to the trial. And then to be, all those detectives, they have to go on the stand and they're going to be cross-examined. And if the defense attorney hears you worked with a psychic, I don't care if it's 2025, there's still a stigma to that.
Yeah.
So I'm not judging either way.
But that's a level of work that if you're good at it, there's an incredible need and a huge calling for it. I don't think everyone that's a medium or a psychic or an intuitive is wired to do that type of work, because it takes a different level of resiliency and stamina and being able to, my words, disassociate from the actual event, because there's a lot of trauma, grief, and fear involved.
You know why I think it's hard? And I don't know if I'm right. Okay. So just hear me out and tell me what you think. I've done one reading where the murdered victim was adamant that the perpetrator be caught. But any other reading I've done where it's a murdered individual, they don't really care.
No.
They're like over there in heaven and they're happy and they're at peace with it and they just want their family to be at peace with it. Do you find that to be true for you as well?
I've found most times that they'll acknowledge the person who's most upset about it here.
Right.
That they'll say, if they could find closure for my mother, or I know that my father is still searching, or whatever. But I've never heard a sense of vengeance or revenge.
No. And so why I think this type of work is hard and why I've kind of distanced myself from it is because in order to help the grieving family, you have to connect your energy not with the victim, but with the perpetrator to catch the perpetrator. And that's hard. That's a weight.
Well, in the class that we've taught together, the mediumship class that we've taught, we used to have it that you had the case that we would go through in one of them.
The unsolved and the cold case. Yeah.
Right. And it was always interesting to me that for some people, they would get hits, they would pick up on things, they love doing it. And other people like, no way, I don't want to touch this.
Yeah. So it was so adamant. We had to make it optional. Remember?
Yep. Because for some people, it's like, I don't want to, but exactly why? Because of what you just said, of you do have to be able to connect with the person who's in the situation. And that can be very, very, it's heavy. It's not light and fluffy. I have your Graham. She's offering your birthday cake. That's a different type of mediumship.
Right. Exactly. But wow, I just think I feel so awful that happened to that poor young woman. But
yeah,
again, I want this listener to realize that when the worst possible thing happened to her, her energy went to you. And what a testimony of the work you've done as a counselor your whole life. That's a beautiful thing.
And that the young woman worked as a teacher assistant. So
good point.
To be able to give back to, and I'm sure that, because that was always one of my favorite things, is I would find the shy, quiet kid who was kind of in the shadows and let them feel valued and seen, because I knew what it felt like to be that shy, quiet kid.
Yes.
And I'm sure she could help those kids that felt a little different.
Oh, I'm sure. My beautiful, 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 sweet Uncle Bobby, I just loved him so much. He was my godfather too. He had a cleft palate. And my grandmother had to get a job. She had 4 kids, twins. I mean, she was a busy lady, and she had to go work in a factory at nights to save up for his surgery. And I think he was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 when she finally saved up the money for the surgery. And he still had that scar, because if you don't do it right away, you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothered him, and that just broke my heart. He was the first person in the whole line of that entire family to go to college.
Oh, I love that. He
became a pharmacist. He's just a great man. But it always bothered him, that little line between his nose and his lip.
Mm-hmm.
So how wonderful that this listener was able to help her raise money for that and other things. And I just think that's great.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story.
Well, I think that's it, right? Okay. Well, those are all of our questions and stories for this month. Well, not really. We have a couple more, but we've run out of time. But we will save them for next month, I promise. If you have a story or question you want to send in, please email us enlightenedempaths@gmail.com. And if you really want yours read, just try to keep it a little bit short and sweet. It's hard for us to have these ones that go on and on and on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're wonderful and give us
Wonderful.
so much to work with, but we like to try to reach as many people as possible and share as many different stories and comments as questions as possible.
Exactly. Thank you guys again for listening. We hope you have a great week and enjoy all the beautiful energy that these new astrological alignments are bringing us. Remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.